I rushed to the office, and Mike was waiting for me. Kevin, I'm having trouble opening this file. It contains patient data, and if we can't access it, the reception work will come to a halt. I was hoping you could help. What? Are you serious? If you can't handle it, there's no way this contractor can. He's an exterior repair contractor, you know. Rachel, the office manager, said sharply, with a puzzled look. I saw Mia, the beautiful office clerk, with tear-filled eyes, looking anxious. I couldn't just leave her, usually so cheerful, in such distress. My name is Kevin. Right now, I work for my uncle's exterior repair company. At 30, I never thought I'd change jobs like this, but I've recently started to think that physical work isn't so bad. I've been playing rugby since high school, so I have a solid build and tend to stand out. People often say my broad shoulders are perfect for manual labor. However, I'm usually quite reserved, so I don't attract much attention even in my new workplace. For the past 2 weeks, I've been going to the hospital every day. Not because of an injury or illness, but for work. The hospital's exterior walls are quite deteriorated, and my uncle's company is handling the repairs. Since I'm new at the company, I'm treated like a rookie. My daily routine includes borrowing armbands and ID cards for all the workers from the hospital office. Good morning, I'm Kevin from the exterior repair company. Can I get today's armbands and ID cards, please? The person who always helps me at the office is Mia, a bright and pleasant-looking office clerk. Her large eyes and clear skin make her look like an actress. Her hair, in soft waves, bounces lightly as she walks. Seeing her cheerful face at the start of the day always lifts my spirits and energizes me. Oh, good morning, Kevin. Just a moment. I'll get them for you. She says this as she quickly retrieves the necessary armbands and cards from a drawer. Meanwhile, I fill out the form with the company name, my name, and the borrowing time, and hand it to her. It's going to be hot again today. Please make sure everyone stays hydrated. Lately, it's been unusually hot for June, with strong sunlight from the morning. She's always so friendly and kind, even to workers like me. Because of this, going to the office has become a little highlight of my day. Naturally, she's popular with patients, staff, and doctors alike. The men who talk to her obviously have a crush on her, which is clear even from a distance. When I came with my uncle 6 months ago to inspect the repair site, I didn't see her, so she must be a relatively new face at the hospital. One day, when I went to borrow the work ID cards as usual, the office atmosphere was different and unusually chaotic. When I asked what happened, I learned that a spreadsheet file containing patient data couldn't be opened because they didn't know the password. Rachel was furiously scolding Mia. It seemed that Mia was somehow involved in the problem. Rachel was threatening her with dismissal, and she was visibly trembling. Her usual brightness was completely gone, replaced by anxiety and fear. At that moment, a male staff member walked in. But when he saw me, he stopped in his tracks. Kevin? Is that really you, Kevin? I was momentarily puzzled by the familiar voice, but then I recognized his face. Oh, Mike? Wow, it's been a while. Are you working here? Yes, I am. I'm the IT guy here. Oh, sorry. We're in a bit of a crisis right now, so I'll contact you later. Your contact info hasn't changed. Right? Yeah, it's still the same. But I'll be here working on the hospital's exterior repairs for a while, so feel free to reach out anytime. He looked puzzled. You're doing exterior repairs? Well, okay. Sorry, but I really have to go now. With that, he hurried over to Mia's computer. I was concerned about her, who looked on the verge of tears, but it wasn't my place to intervene. Plus, with Mike handling IT, I figured things would be resolved. It seemed impossible to get the armbands and ID cards from Mia today. I reluctantly asked another office clerk to prepare them and left the office. While I was working outside, the clerk who lent me the armband came looking for me. Excuse me, is Kevin around here? She called out loudly. Yes, that's me. What's up? I replied just as loudly. Mike from IT asked me to bring you over. Not knowing what it was about, I got permission from my uncle to leave my post. Since I was still an assistant, my absence wouldn't cause much disruption. I rushed to the office, and Mike was waiting for me. Kevin, I'm sorry to bother you at work, but we're having trouble opening this file. It contains patient data, and without it, the reception work stops. I'm the IT guy here, but I mostly liaise with contractors and rarely do hands-on work. I thought you might be able to help. What? What are you talking about? If you can't handle it, there's no way he can. He's an exterior wall repair contractor. Besides, we can't just let an outsider use our computers. Rachel's point was valid. He used to be my senior at an IT firm. He's a brilliant engineer and has helped me many times. If we can't open this file, the reception work stops. This is an emergency. I'll supervise his work, so please let him try. Kevin, can you help? Looking at the reception area, I saw clerks handling tasks on paper, creating a longer than usual line. Rachel, clearly irritated, responded. All right. But make sure you watch him closely and recover the file. I used to work in IT, but I had been away from that field for a while. However, I decided to lend a hand at the request of a junior colleague. Above all, I couldn't ignore Mia, who was always so cheerful, now looking so troubled. Mike, I'll help if I can. First, let me understand the situation. Why was the password changed, and is there a backup file? I'll explain. Mia said, her face full of anxiety. We update the password monthly for security. I followed the procedure to change it. The backup files are in this folder. I always save them here before changing the password. But when I checked, all the backup files were gone. Gone? Maybe they were moved to another folder? Mike interjected. I thought so too, but I searched and found nothing. They're not in the recycle bin either. Rachel added, her tone harsh. She must have accidentally deleted them. Who else would do it? Those words made her look like she was about to cry. I asked Mia. Do you have any idea what the new password might be? The passwords are generated using this site, and I write them on a sticky note and keep it in this drawer. It seemed like a primitive method, but many companies probably do the same. Did you check if the new password worked after changing it? Yes, I did. I'm not lying. Seeing her desperately defend herself, I felt like I was interrogating her and started feeling sorry for her. I understood the situation. I tried the password she had changed, its variations in uppercase and lowercase, and the original password, but the file wouldn't open. So, I decided to look up methods and tools online to decrypt the password. There was a sense of tension, mixed with a bit of nostalgia for my old job. A few minutes after running the tool, I successfully decrypted the password. The file's open. Mia, who was watching, exclaimed with shining eyes, "Wow, that's amazing." Thank you so much, Kevin. Mike also expressed his gratitude for my work. Kevin, you're incredible. Thank you. I can't believe you solved it so quickly. You're amazing. The staff around us shared in the joy, and the atmosphere instantly became brighter. Seeing everyone's relieved smiles made me happy as well. I never expected to be thanked so much. But I had doubts about the incident. Why were the backup files deleted? Why didn't the password Mia had confirmed work? Something felt off. I left the office to get back to my work, feeling a bit embarrassed by the grateful send-off from everyone, like I was a hero. That evening, when I went back to the office to return the armbands and ID cards, Mia suddenly spoke to me. Kevin, thank you so much for today. If you don't mind, would you like to grab dinner together? I was surprised and overjoyed by her invitation, pumping my fist in my mind. Honestly, I never expected her to ask me out. Yes, of course. I'd love to. I replied with a smile, though I was a bit nervous. The staff around us briefly glanced our way. Their expressions showing surprise and curiosity, with some even smiling. Noticing this, Mia blushed slightly. We agreed to meet at the hospital entrance. Usually, she wore her office uniform, so I hadn't noticed, but her casual clothes were lovely. A feminine top with stylish jeans. She had the aura of a sophisticated adult woman. In contrast, I was still in my work clothes. She initially suggested a fancy restaurant, but I declined. Dressed like this, they'd probably not let me in. We left the hospital and started walking towards a nearby pub. The town was bathed in the orange glow of sunset. "Are you familiar with this area?" she asked. "Well, it's alright. I know a few good bars, and the one we're going to today has great fish," I replied, sharing some local anecdotes with her. Most of them were things I had learned from my uncle. "I see. I'm still getting used to this area." As we walked, I noticed a fresh, floral scent coming from her. Was it a floral perfume? It made being near her even more pleasant. At the same time, I worried about smelling sweaty after a day's work. I discreetly checked my clothes. "Is something wrong, Kevin?" "I was just worried I might smell sweaty." She laughed softly. "I think you're the first guy I've met who's concerned about his smell." "Don't worry, you don't smell." Her kindness was clear, but I couldn't help wondering if she was just being polite. Dinner was at a local pub. A place my uncle often took me. The pub was small and had a relaxed atmosphere. We sat at a corner table, lightly clinking our beer glasses together. "Cheers," we said, taking a sip and starting to chat. We began with proper introductions. "Her name is Mia. She's 28, 2 years younger than me." She asked me to speak casually, so I did. I noticed her phone on the table, displaying a stunning nature photo. "That photo is amazing. Where did you take it?" I asked, intrigued. "Oh, I took this at the top of a mountain I visited last month during my break." "I love photography, especially capturing nature," she replied, beaming. "Wow, I also enjoy photography. I often go hiking and take landscape photos." I didn't expect us to have that in common. Mia, excited, suggested, "Then we should go on a photo shoot together next time." Her words made my heart skip a beat. Could this be a date invitation? But then I thought, maybe it's just a group outing with other photography enthusiasts. Not wanting to jump to conclusions, I replied calmly, "That sounds great. I'd love to. We can learn about each other's styles and have some fun." Our conversation flowed as we shared photos. While I was scrolling through my phone, Mia stopped me. "Wait, that photo is beautiful." Our fingers brushed against each other. It might have been nothing to her, but it made my heart race. We had planned to have a quick meal, but we ended up talking for 3 hours. The pub gradually quieted down, with occasional bursts of laughter breaking the tranquility. "Thank you so much for today. As a token of my appreciation for solving the issue, let me cover the bill," Mia said, pulling out her purse. "No, I'll pay today. I had a great time, and I want to go out with you again. Next time, I'll be in casual clothes and won't smell sweaty." She laughed softly. "Alright, next time it's my treat. I'll find a nice place you'll enjoy," she agreed. Her smile warmed my heart, and I felt a sense of relief. We walked back, talking about our next photo outing. On the way home, her smile and voice kept replaying in my mind, making my heart race. These feelings were clearly more than just friendship. I was becoming very aware of my growing attraction to her. The next day, whenever I went to the office, our conversations naturally increased. We talked about work, hobbies, and everyday events. I started looking forward to my visits to the office even more. When the exterior repairs at the hospital were completed, it was my last day visiting. I mustered the courage to ask Mia to exchange social media contacts to stay in touch. "Mia, would you like to be friends on social media? I'd love to share more about photography and other things with you." She smiled brightly. "Of course, I'd love that. I'd like to talk more with you and hear about your photography." Her positive response was a huge relief. However, despite exchanging contacts, I found myself unsure of what to message her. Having little experience with dating at 30, I was anxious about what to write and how to continue our conversations. Every time I saw her icon, my heart raced, but I couldn't find the courage to send a message. 10 days after I stopped going to the hospital, I received a social media message from Mia. The message read, "Hello Kevin. I'd like to meet and talk with you directly. Do you have some time?" Seeing her message made my heart pound. I felt guilty for not messaging her earlier. But the joy of seeing her again was much greater. I quickly replied, arranging to meet her. It had only been 10 days since we last met. But I was nervous. Meeting her in a different place from the hospital added to my nerves. When she arrived at the cafe, we exchanged smiles. Her usual bright smile helped me relax. "Hi, Kevin. How have you been?" She started the conversation in a friendly tone as soon as we sat down. We chatted about our recent activities and how we'd been spending our days. Once we felt more at ease, her expression grew more serious. "I called you here to talk about the patient data trouble you helped with. It turns out it wasn't my fault. Mike found out that a colleague deliberately changed the password." Her face showed a mix of relief and lingering anger. "I never thought I did anything to make a colleague resent me, but it really bothers me. And I wanted you to know the truth," she continued. "It was clear it wasn't your fault, Mia. It sounds like pure jealousy. Don't let it bother you too much." I reassured her, relieved that her innocence was proven. I was thrilled that she wanted to meet and talk to me. "Thanks, Kevin. Hearing that from you really helps." I had suspected the missing backup files and asked Mike to investigate. He noticed the oddity but struggled to find a lead. I sent him some websites from home that might help. He quickly began investigating, checking computer operation logs and the hospital security system records. He told me about a colleague of Mia's who had set her up. This colleague had a crush on a popular doctor at the hospital and didn't like that the doctor had started showing interest in the newly hired Mia. Out of jealousy, she caused the data trouble to get Mia into trouble. The culprit had a few years of experience working in IT. So she knew how to use shared computers without leaving identifiable login records and how to permanently delete backup files. This colleague, who was just as attractive as Mia, felt overshadowed by her arrival and wanted to drive her out. Mike worked on verifying the investigation and coordinating with the parties involved. The incident of making important hospital files inaccessible was taken very seriously. Although it took time to coordinate with everyone involved, the truth eventually came to light, and the colleague responsible was dismissed. When Mia thanked me at the cafe, her face lit up. In that moment, I found her absolutely adorable. Her smile was so bright that I thought, I have to confess my feelings. My heart pounded. Nervously, I said, "Mia, I need to tell you something. I've realized that I really like you. These past days without seeing you have felt empty. Your smile and voice mean a lot to me. You're more than just a friend to me." My heart raced even faster. "Would you go out with me?" I finally mustered the courage to express my feelings to her. She looked surprised for a moment but then smiled gently. "I thought you disliked me since you didn't send any messages." Taking a breath, she added, "Yes, I like you too, Kevin. I'd love to go out with you." Her acceptance transformed the moment into the best one ever. All my anxiety and tension melted away, replaced by immense happiness. "I'm sorry about the messages. I just couldn't find the courage." I felt a bit embarrassed, but I apologized honestly. While talking to her about taking her to a recommended photo spot as a way to apologize, my phone rang. It was Mike. I told her it was a call from him and excused myself. "Kevin, thanks for your help. We caught the culprit because of you." "Yeah, that's great," I said, pretending I hadn't just heard the news. "By the way, I need your advice on something else." Hearing advice gave me a bad feeling. It better not be too complicated. "I'm with someone right now, so make it quick. Whether you find it troublesome is up to you, Kevin. Actually, there's talk about hiring you as our IT specialist. We currently have 3 IT staff. But we're short-handed." Not only had I helped resolve the data trouble, but my suggestions for strengthening security and integrating patient reception information with electronic medical records had impressed the hospital. They wanted me to work as an official IT staff member. The hospital recognized these issues but lacked the IT personnel to implement solutions. I had left my previous company because I felt out of sync with their direction, which left me pretty down. Since then, I had thought physical work suited me better. But it wasn't that I disliked IT. I enjoyed logical thinking and problem solving. This proposal genuinely interested me. "Got it. Let me think about it," I said, ending the call. I decided to discuss it with Mia. "What do you think? As long as it makes you happy, any choice you make is fine with me. If you see it as an opportunity, you should take it. Plus, I'd be happy to work in the same place as you." Her words made me so happy. Hearing that, my fears about returning to IT vanished. One thing that still bothered me was the job my uncle had introduced me to. After quitting my previous job, I had been quite depressed. I had resigned impulsively, causing trouble for those around me. Without another job lined up, I had become a recluse, barely leaving the house. Seeing this, my mom couldn't bear it anymore and talked to my uncle. He had always been family-oriented and supportive. Upon hearing about my situation, he immediately offered me a job. "Kevin, why not help with exterior repairs? It'll be good to get outside and move around." At first, I resisted, but knowing how much they cared, I decided to work at his company. Working there indeed made my days fulfilling. Physical work lifted my spirits, and I gradually started to enjoy learning repair techniques. "Seeing me become brighter," he often said, "see? Working is important." Solving the data trouble at the hospital boosted my confidence. He understood my transformation better than anyone. Would this be betraying him? The next day, I went to see my uncle before work started. It was rare for me to approach him directly. He quickly sensed that I wanted to talk and listen to me. "If moving forward makes you happy, that's what matters most. Exterior repair work is important, but your happiness is paramount," he said, encouraging me warmly. His support meant more than I could express. I decided to pursue my IT career again. Oddly, this decision felt like a fresh start, and I was excited. Time flew by as Mia and I started dating. Getting to know each other deeply, we felt a bond beyond just being lovers. Naturally, this led to marriage. Married life turned out to be even happier and more fulfilling than I had imagined. We often enjoyed photography together, a passion we both shared. Next year, we'll have a child. Now, we dream of hiking and taking photos with our child. My name is Mark. I grew up in a poor household and never got anything I wanted. Even so, there was nothing I could do about it, so I endured it. But, at my parents' request, I started working right after middle school to support the family. To be honest, I still don't know why my family didn't have any money. Even as an adult, I can't understand why we were so poor. I want to know, but whenever I ask, the question is brushed off. When I started working after middle school, I asked seriously, but I never got a clear answer. Why is our family so poor? All my friends have more money. None of my friends are working after middle school. Don't worry about that. Just do what you're told. Of course, we feel sorry for you. I don't mind working, but I want to know why. Otherwise, I can't stay motivated. There are some reasons we can't tell you. We're truly sorry for that, but we need you to work. I don't understand why you have to hide it. People ask me why I'm working so hard at my age. I see, you can't answer them, so you want to know from us. But we can't tell you. The more you hide it, the more curious I get. I'll keep working, so just tell me the truth. We appreciate you working after middle school, but we can't tell you the reason. Do I have to work my whole life without knowing? I don't want to work without a reason. Why do I have to do this? We'll tell you when you're older. Until then, please just keep working. We're very grateful. If you really are grateful, then tell me. Why do I have to endure this? Fine, I'll wait until I'm older. In the end, even now as an adult, I haven't gotten the answer. I can only guess, but I think my family had some debt. I was probably made to work to pay it off. I didn't understand as a child, but now I can grasp it a bit. If my parents had told me it was for debt, I would have refused. Because no matter how much I worked, it wouldn't benefit me. When I told my school that I was working after middle school, I was teased a lot. I still remember it vividly and think about it sometimes. Mark, you're going to work right after middle school, right? I knew you were poor, but working after middle school means you must be really poor. I don't want to work, but I have to help my parents. If I don't, my family will struggle. Being born into a family like that, you have no luck, Mark. An elite like me will go to college. You're just a middle school graduate. So you would stay dumb. I've decided to live my life this way. There's no point in making excuses. I don't know what will happen, but I'll enjoy it as much as I can. You don't have to act tough. Deep down, you must envy me. Sorry, my family is just too rich. Of course, I envy you, Jake. I love studying and want to go to college, but I can't because of my family's situation. Being born poor must be really tough. I'm glad I don't have to go through that. I can live doing whatever I want. Stop rubbing it in. I know your family is rich, and I know you're going to college. What, listening to rich talk makes you sick? Sorry about that. Jake always looked down on my poor family. But it was true, so I couldn't say anything back. His family had always been rich and never struggled. Because of that, he always looked down on us. I hated it, so I wanted to know the reason, but my parents never told me. Despite being teased, I started working after middle school. On graduation day, as I was leaving alone, Jake and a beautiful classmate named Sarah talked to me. We're going to the same high school. It's affiliated with a college, so we'll be together there too. Hard to imagine for a middle school grad like you, huh? That's great. Going to the same high school and college sounds fun. You're lucky. You must be jealous. Did you want to go to high school with the beautiful Sarah? Blame your poor parents. You don't have to say that. Jake, you were just lucky to be born into a rich family. How can you be so arrogant? Sarah, you secretly think he is too poor, don't you? You should be honest. I don't think that at all. I wasn't born rich either, and I understand how he feels. Thanks for the sympathy, Sarah. It means a lot. Have lots of fun in high school and college. Don't say such lonely things. You might not go to high school or college, but you can still hang out, right? Will you still hang out with someone like me after graduation? I thought you'd cut ties. I'd love it if you invited me. Even though I'm not going to high school. Of course, I'll invite you to hang out. It doesn't matter when you start working. So even if I'm in high school, I'll still invite you to hang out. She was a really kind person and always treated everyone nicely. She never looked down on me for being poor and always treated me as an equal. I was always grateful to her for that. I remember these moments clearly. Even though she wasn't poor, she always shielded me from being picked on too much. Without her, Jake's taunts would have affected me more deeply. So even as an adult, I am immensely grateful to Sarah. But Jake didn't like seeing her defend me. Every time she did, he would say even nastier things. Why are you defending him so much? Do you have some special feelings for him? It's not that. I just feel sorry for him being picked on, so I stand up for him. Thanks for always being on my side, Sarah. Because of you, I made it through middle school. Jake's the one in the wrong for saying such things. It's childish to insult someone in middle school. Why do I have to be insulted? Calling poor people poor is just normal, right? It's his fault for being poor. I don't think being poor is a fault. How does him being poor affect you, Jake? Does it cause you any problems? Not really, but I'm glad you defend me. But it's true, I am poor, so it's fine. He's not wrong. You being poor have nothing to do with Jake. It's senseless to insult him for it. You might be right, but I'm used to being insulted. I was happy you want to hang out with me. Do you really think she will invite you to hang out? She was just being nice. She won't actually invite you. I seriously plan to invite him. Why do you presume to speak for me, Jake? Stop it. You don't mean it. It's crueler to say it and not follow through. So, you want to look down on poor people too, Sarah? What you say makes no sense. If that's how you feel, I won't hang out with you anymore. I'll only invite Mark. Fine, do whatever you want. I don't want to hang out with someone who defends poor people. Because of me, they had a fight. But there was nothing I could do. Even if I had intervened, the situation wouldn't have changed. Their argument was heated, and I had no authority to speak. Not because I was poor, but because I wasn't going to high school. I was the only one in my middle school who was going straight to work. I was isolated and gossiped about. I hated it, and near graduation, I talked to my mom. I feel like everyone knows I'm working after middle school and they're talking behind my back. What should I do? Thinking about it is a waste of time. You're definitely working, so just ignore the gossip. But I can't help but hear it. Classmates insult me directly. It's because we're poor, you know that, right? Even if I call the school, they will just act out more. There's nothing we can do. Maybe, but I'm the only one working after middle school. I want to stop the gossip somehow. You're entering the workforce early, which is admirable. Education isn't everything, so don't worry. I've kept it a secret, but I want to go to high school and college too. I want to hang out with friends. I'm sorry we can't send you to high school or college. But you can still hang out with them. Treasure those friendships. If I hadn't been born into this family, I'd have a happier life. Why was I born here? I thought you were happy being born into this family because you never said otherwise. I don't always think that, but when I'm gossiped about, I wonder why I was born into this family. When I said that, Mom went quiet. She knew I was struggling and couldn't argue back. If she had, I might have rebelled. But seeing her expression, I knew I wasn't abandoned, so I resolved to work hard for my family. So I graduated from middle school and entered the workforce immediately. Now, I'm living alone, away from my parents' house. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from Sarah. I'm sorry for calling suddenly, Mark. I'm not the organizer, but I had your number, so I decided to call. No problem at all. You mentioned an organizer, what's that about? Is there a reunion or something? I thought I sent an invitation to your parents' house, but maybe you didn't get it. There's a class reunion in our hometown in 2 months. Oh, I had no idea. I've moved out and live on my own now, so I must have missed the invitation. Your invitation was probably sent to your parents' place. Since you didn't respond, I decided to call you. So, I can just confirm my attendance over the phone? I'd love to attend, but I'm a bit nervous about a reunion. You're a respectable working adult now, so there's no need to be nervous. But some of the attendees did say hurtful things back then. Well, I'll give it a try. If it gets uncomfortable, I'll just leave early and grab a drink somewhere. I'm sure that won't happen, but if it does, I'll join you. I think you're amazing for being so independent. It's not a big deal, but thanks. I'll go since you invited me. Great, I'll let the organizer know. I'll send you the details about the venue later. That's how I ended up deciding to attend the reunion. Since graduation, she is the only one I've stayed in touch with. So she went out of her way to contact me. I never expected a reunion, let alone an invitation. I'm sure they sent invites to everyone, but it was nice to be included. Not knowing what to expect, I decided to go, feeling a bit nervous. 2 months later, the day of the reunion arrived. I was supposed to go with Sarah, so we met at the train station. I've never been to a reunion, so I'm nervous. I've never been to anything like a college party either, so I feel out of place. Don't worry too much. Everyone's more grown up now. Just avoid the wrong groups, and you'll be fine. I'm glad you know these things. Without you, I wouldn't have come. Thanks for hanging out with me after graduation. I'm happy to hang out with you too. I know you're busy, but you always show up when I invite you. It's the best. Of course, I'd go if you invite me. I don't have many friends, and you're one of the few who invites me out. Whether that's true or not, it makes me happy. I learn a lot from hanging out with you, and you helped me during my job hunt. I don't know how I helped, but if hanging out with me had a positive impact, that's great. I'd love to keep hanging out. Let's grab a drink after the reunion. By the way, Jake is supposed to attend. I wonder what kind of adult he is now. To be honest, I don't want to see him. I have no good memories of him, and he'll probably look down on me again. If he starts, I'll leave early. I expected Jake to attend, but the thought of seeing him made me nervous. I have only bad memories of him, and I don't want to see him at all. He'd probably spot me immediately and start belittling me like in middle school. I didn't want to feel that again, but with so many people, I thought it would be okay. Even so, the memories of middle school made me anxious. But Sarah's encouragement reassured me. If anything happens, just come to me. I'll try to stay with you, but with so many people, anything could happen. I'm glad you said that. I'm really nervous because I've never been to a reunion. If anything happens, can I leave early? I don't particularly want to be there either, just want to see some old friends. We can leave after chatting a bit. Just hearing that makes me feel better. I'll keep an eye on Jake. Even though I'm more mature now, I still get nervous. There will be lots of adults around. If he says something out of line, someone will stop him. I hope so. Memories of middle school keep coming back. I just want it to go smoothly. So, feeling nervous, I arrived at the reunion venue. The place was already buzzing with lots of people, and some were quite drunk. After asking around, I found out they had started early because many arrived ahead of time. At least Jake wasn't there yet, so I could relax and enjoy myself. But I stayed on guard, unsure when he would show up. About an hour into drinking with everyone, he arrived, late because of work. Seeing him unchanged from our school days, memories flooded back, making me sweat. Hey everyone, you were waiting for me, right? It wouldn't be a party without a superstar like me. Let's have a great time tonight. What makes you so arrogant? You haven't changed at all since middle school. I didn't think you'd still be the same. What a thing to say right off the bat. You might not know this, Sarah, but I'm now the top earner at a top company. So don't underestimate me. Even if you're the top earner at a top company, we're just middle school classmates, so it doesn't change how I interact with you. Fine, whatever. I've got business with that poor guy over there. Meeting him is the real reason I came. As he said this, he slowly walked over to me. It seemed he had something to say to me. I had no idea what it could be. But one thing was for sure, it wouldn't be anything good. Given his arrogant introduction, he was probably going to brag about himself. As I was thinking that, Jake, with a smug grin, stood before me. Long time no see, poor boy. You're still wearing cheap clothes. Years have passed since middle school, but you haven't changed a bit. It doesn't matter what I wear. So, what do you want with me? Well, I've become a top earner at a prestigious company since then. I make more money than you could ever dream of. That's great for you. But why tell me? I don't really care. You're just jealous, aren't you? Admit it. Being poor is tough, right? Sure, being born poor wasn't great, but it doesn't bother me as much now. I cared more back in school. You must still be hung up on it. You're probably stuck in a low-paying job since you only have a middle school education. If you'd been born into a rich family, things would be different. He continued to look down on me. His reason for approaching me was to belittle me. As Sarah said, he hadn't changed since middle school. He flaunted his privileged life and looked down on others. It seemed like some of our classmates were laughing along with him. They were probably the ones who gossiped about me back then, still laughing now. But I've grown up, and such things don't bother me as much anymore. While I was thinking that, Sarah came to my rescue. Let's get out of here, Mark. This place is a waste of time. Let's go somewhere else and have a drink. The atmosphere here is ruining the taste of the alcohol. Sorry for making you feel that way. I'll treat you to the next place. Let's go find somewhere else to drink. You're not going anywhere. How about we all go to his place for the next round? Why would we go to my place? Aren't there usually planned venues for the after party? It makes no sense to come to my place. I want to see a poor person's home. Although, I bet it's an old, shabby apartment compared to my home. Fine, you can come over. But is everyone okay with moving the after party to my place? You're probably not happy about it, right? Your place is probably too small to fit everyone. Don't make us suffer. I don't know what you consider suffering, but I'm fine with it. I sometimes have drinks at home, so I have some alcohol. I don't want to drink your cheap liquor. I'll bring the alcohol. By the way, I live in a brand new apartment. Jake started showing everyone pictures of his apartment. It seemed he was really a top earner and lived in a nice place for someone in their 20s. While having everyone over was inconvenient, arguing was more trouble, so I agreed. Everyone kept making derogatory comments on the way to my place. They assumed I lived in a shabby, small apartment and planned to laugh when they saw it. Actually, they started booking a second after-party venue. We arrived in front of my building. I moved recently and live here now. I don't know where everyone else lives, but sorry if it feels small. Wait a minute, you live here? Stop joking. You're supposed to live in a shack, right? My childhood home was old, but I moved out and live here alone. It's close to work and very convenient. Why are you talking like this is true? There's no way a poor guy like you lives here. This is a prime location tower apartment. It might be rare for someone living alone, but I love the view, so I live here. The long elevator rides are annoying, though. Stop acting like you live here. Even if you moved out, you must be in some rundown apartment. Show us your real home. Jake couldn't believe I lived in a luxury tower apartment. In middle school, I wore old, hand-me-down clothes, so it was understandable. But now, I work hard and pay my own rent. As I was about to lead them into my home to prove my point, Sarah couldn't hold back any longer and stepped forward. Jake, you might not know this, but he has worked incredibly hard since graduating middle school and is now a successful entrepreneur. Mark, an entrepreneur? He didn't even go to high school. There's no way he could do that. Everyone seems to be laughing, so I guess no one believes it. Here's the website of his company, by the way. Sure, his name is listed as the CEO, but anyone can make a website like this. You are just trying to fool me. Even after she explained it, you still don't believe it, Jake? Fine. Let's go to my place then. With that, I led them into the tower apartment and opened the door to my unit. My last name was clearly written on the door plate, making it undeniable. Jake's face turned pale with shock. After all, the person he had looked down on was now a successful entrepreneur living in a luxury apartment. He had been so smug, but now he was silent. He couldn't process the reality. Now, do you believe me? If you still don't, you're welcome to visit my office. No way a poor guy could afford a place like this. And seeing your name on the door plate, you really are a successful entrepreneur. Jake, you've always looked down on him, but he never gave up and worked hard. Now he's shining as a successful entrepreneur. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but being looked down on by you pushed me to work even harder. So, because we insulted you, you grew in defiance? I can't believe I was surpassed by you. After all the insults, to be outdone by the person you belittled, that's truly pathetic. I never thought this would happen. I was so sure I'd never lose to Mark. How did he achieve so much? Thanks to the success of my business, I was able to renovate my parents' old house. They were so grateful and happy. Jake always boasted about his parents' achievements, but Mark has done something truly admirable. He persevered and succeeded despite his circumstances. The person I looked down on has succeeded. In middle school, he seemed so incapable. Who could have predicted this? If you hadn't looked down on anyone, you wouldn't be so devastated now. It must be painful to see the person you insulted succeed, right? With her words, Jake fell silent and left the apartment. It seemed she had hit the nail on the head. Ashamed, he had fled. I've never seen him like that. But I'm glad you could show him up, Mark. It makes me happy too. Thanks for always being there for me, Sarah. I wouldn't have come this far without you. After graduating middle school, I initially worked at a regular company but couldn't fit in, so I went independent. Mentored by successful entrepreneurs, I gradually grew my business. A few years after going independent, I sold my first company. Using the proceeds, I started a new company and built my wealth. Thanks to this, I could repay my parents and live happily. Had I not been born to my parents, I might have remained just an employee, so I'm grateful to them. From now on, I won't let my lack of formal education hold me back. I'll keep moving forward. After returning from a long overseas business trip, I was talking with my colleague, Emily, when I heard our boss, John, shouting from behind. "Stay away from her." I couldn't believe my ears. Emily was also bewildered. Then John dropped a bombshell. "Emily and I are going to start dating." He said this while putting his arm around Emily's shoulder. It was clear that Emily was uncomfortable. There's no way Emily would date John. That's simply impossible. Because my name is David Smith, I'm 32 years old. I currently work for a major construction company. My main tasks involve building construction and tunnel excavation. I've been interested in buildings since I was a child, influenced by my father. That's why I jumped into this industry. My father worked at a construction company and built many buildings. He proudly showed me the completed buildings, and he looked radiant. Wanting to start this job and become skilled as soon as possible, I began working right after graduating from high school. Against my parents' wishes. My father always said, "You'll struggle if you don't graduate from college," but I ignored him. I had an unfounded confidence that as long as I was motivated, I'd be fine without a degree. But later, I would come to realize that my father was not entirely wrong. After joining a well-known construction company in my hometown, I worked energetically as an apprentice. I did everything I could and actively studied. Though I never liked studying, I could do anything related to my beloved construction work. My bosses and colleagues were kind, and I quickly gained skills. Then, a turning point came. A few years after I started working, I received a transfer notice from the head office. In this company, there is a mandatory transfer every few years to better understand the company. Though I was prepared, I was stunned when I saw the paper from the head office. I was being transferred to the sales department at the head office. Could someone like me, who had always worked on site, handle sales? I was extremely anxious. And my fears would come true. On my first day in the sales department, I walked into the office with nervous steps. It had been a while since I wore a suit, so my movements were awkward. Then, a beautiful woman appeared in front of me. "You're David, right?" "I'm Emily, and I'll be your mentor from today." "Nice to meet you." Emily said this and guided me to my desk. Seeing how kind and approachable Emily seemed, I felt genuinely relieved. And looking at Emily's face reminded me of something. "Are you the Emily who started the same time as me?" Yes, Emily had sat next to me at the welcome party. I remembered how Emily had kindly talked to me since I was fresh out of high school and nervous. Emily seemed to remember the day too when her face brightened up. "Oh, you're that guy." "I remember. It's been years since then. It's so nostalgic." We started reminiscing about our early days as new employees, completely sidetracking from work. But then, a loud voice interrupted us from behind. "Chatting right after a transfer? You've got some nerve. I heard you were a high school graduate from the field. But I didn't expect you to look so incompetent." Stop distracting Emily from her work. John was inexplicably furious with me. I couldn't understand why I was being scolded so harshly. What did he mean by saying, I looked incompetent because I graduated high school? Emily immediately came to my defense. "David is my peer, and we were just catching up. I plan to have him shadow me on sales calls so he can gradually learn the job. With his field experience, he'll adapt quickly." Hearing this, John laughed. "Emily, you were peers with this high school graduate? Don't worry. I'll assign a different mentor to him." I was shocked. This was the first time I truly understood what my father meant about struggling without a college degree. Emily looked displeased and unsatisfied with John's decision. "But I already prepared training materials for him based on your request, so I'd like to continue as his mentor." But John was adamant. "Sorry for the trouble, but I'll assign him a more suitable mentor." "Jim. Come here." An employee named Jim, who looked a bit older than me, stepped forward. John appointed him as my mentor. "Jim, you'll be mentoring this guy from today. He's a high school graduate like you. It's best for a high school graduate to be trained by another high school graduate." Brilliant idea, if I say so myself. John walked away, patting himself on the back. It became clear that John was extremely concerned with academic qualifications and looked down on high school graduates. I felt only anxiety about the future. As I stood there bewildered, Emily sighed deeply and said to me, "I'm really sorry. John is such a moody person. It's so frustrating. But you'll get used to it soon." Then she returned to her desk. Jim quickly approached me, instructing me to join him for sales rounds. I followed Jim as told. Once we left the office for our sales calls, Jim said something surprising. "David, you're about my age, right? I've been wanting to transfer out of here, but I haven't gotten the orders yet. I don't want to work under someone like John." Jim sighed deeply. It's natural not to want to work under someone as arrogant as John. Trying to console Jim, I said, "I understand how you feel. I was called incompetent just for being a high school graduate right after my transfer. I'm worried about how things will go from here." But Jim's expression didn't brighten. Then he revealed something shocking. "The reason he switched your mentor from Emily to me is because Emily is his favorite. He probably didn't like seeing you talking to her." "What? He changed my mentor just because of that?" Jim continued. "Yeah. The sales department is John's domain. In the past, he transferred male employees rumored to be close to Emily. That's the kind of person he is." I was speechless. It's one thing for John to have feelings for Emily, who's much younger than him, but it's absurd for him to be jealous of other employees. I felt completely stunned. I had no confidence in my ability to work here without issues. For now, I followed Jim on his sales calls, taking notes on everything I needed to learn. I will learn my job quickly so that John won't say anything to me. I swore this in my heart. But when we returned to the office after the sales rounds, the atmosphere was unusually noisy. In the midst of my curiosity, I saw Emily approaching. I glanced over at John. Sure enough, John was watching Emily closely, just as Jim had said. It was evident that John had feelings for Emily. "John suddenly decided to wrap up work early today and have a welcome party for you. You're coming, right? Wrapping up work early for a welcome party." I appreciated the gesture, but I wondered if it was really okay to leave work early. I was sure John just wanted an excuse to go drinking with Emily. I was certain of that. Jim seemed to have the same thought and looked exasperated. "I'm glad they're having a party for me. I'll definitely join," I said, making Emily happy. Then, I returned to my desk to finish up some work before the party. Following Jim's instructions, I was working on preparing some materials. At 5 p.m., the office started heading to the designated pub. Emily got ready to leave and came over to my desk. "David, let's go." Though Emily invited me, I wanted to finish a bit more work first. "I'll be there soon. Please go ahead without me," I said, continuing my work. Emily, seeing my situation, said, "All right, I'll go ahead," and headed to the pub. Jim stayed with me, so I hurried to finish my work. Just as I was making progress, John came over to my desk. He dumped a pile of documents in front of me. Jim and I were both stunned. "These documents need to be sorted by tomorrow. You guys can come to the welcome party after finishing this." "Not that I expect you to finish." I was speechless. John left the office, laughing and in high spirits. Jim was shaking with anger. John planned this from the beginning. This is all John's work. It's infuriating. I upset Jim because of my actions. Missing the welcome party bothered me less than that. I apologized to Jim profusely. "I'm sorry for this. I'll handle it alone, so please go to the welcome party." But Jim picked up some of the documents and started working on his computer. "A party without you wouldn't be any fun. Besides, I don't want to drink with someone like John." He said that and smiled. I was deeply grateful to Jim. After several hours, we had finished about half of the work. I went to the vending machine to get Jim a cup of coffee. I decided that, since there wasn't much left, I would finish the rest alone and let Jim go home. Just as I was about to return to the office, I heard a voice behind me. "You're still here. Everyone's waiting for you at the party." It was Emily. Apparently, John hadn't told everyone that Jim and I were still working. Is the welcome party already over? I asked, puzzled. Emily looked visibly annoyed. I slipped out because I didn't want to deal with a drunk John. I could understand that. Hearing Emily's words, I couldn't help but grimace. Seeing my expression, Emily asked me with concern. Do you have so much work on your first day that you need to stay late? I couldn't lie to Emily, so I told her everything about John dumping his work on me. Emily's eyes widened in shock. What? I had no idea. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Emily looked genuinely upset. This isn't your fault, so don't feel bad. But Emily shook her head. John ruined your welcome party. I'll help you finish this quickly, and then we can have a proper welcome party together. Emily rushed back to the office. Inside, Jim was furiously working on the documents without a break. He was surprised but pleased to see Emily joining the effort. Together, we worked hard and managed to finish the work. We decided to have my welcome party at a different bar, far from where John and the others were. Jim, freed from the work, chugged his beer in one go. Even Emily joined him, drinking her beer down. I really want to get back at John someday, Jim shouted. Emily also vented her frustrations. Ever since John became our boss, I've been having nightmares every day. He keeps messaging me for no reason. It's unbearable. I was stunned. John was bothering Emily even outside of work. No wonder she was having nightmares. Jim, hearing Emily, gave her some advice. Emily, you're beautiful and graceful, so you're very popular among the male employees. John especially likes you. He might be trying to make you his girlfriend. Be careful. Emily shuddered. No way. That's insane. She downed another beer. Despite the short time, we had a fun welcome party. We promised to go out again and exchanged contact information before leaving the bar. As we stepped out, I felt a chill run down my spine. John was standing right in front of us. What are you doing here? And with Emily. We all turned pale. Emily quickly tried to defuse the situation. We just ran into each other and decided to have a meal together. But John, already drunk, wasn't convinced and started shouting. How dare you meet behind my back? And drinking with Emily without my permission. You'll pay for this. Jim and I were speechless. Why would we need John's permission to drink with Emily? It made no sense. John, you're drunk. Let's just go home, Emily said, trying to calm him down. Despite her earlier dislike for John, Emily was willing to leave with him for our sake. John happily walked beside her, grinning like a fool. I was too stunned to speak, realizing just how foolish he was. The next day, I trudged to the office with a heavy heart. After yesterday's events, I had no idea what John might say. I braced myself for the worst. Sure enough, as soon as John arrived, he made a point of walking past me and loudly said, "Having a high school graduate here drags everyone's morale down. It's really awful." John constantly made snide remarks about Jim and me. Just because he graduated from an elite college didn't give him the right to look down on others. But I ignored John and kept working. If I quit now, I would be giving him exactly his wish. Despite enduring John's relentless belittling, I persevered. As the days went by and the toll on my mental and physical health grew, a rumor began circulating in the office. It was a rumor that Emily and I were dating. Since exchanging contact information, Emily and I had been frequently meeting up to vent about John, and some colleagues had seen us together. I knew this would cause trouble if it reached John's ears. But it was already too late. Just as I was about to head out for my usual sales rounds, John suddenly appeared before me and dropped a bombshell. "You don't need to go on sales calls anymore." "Ha?" Seeing my confusion, John looked smug. "The head office is looking for someone for a long-term overseas assignment, and I recommended you. With your field experience, they decided to send you. You'll be gone for 3 years, and you leave in 2 days. Start preparing quickly." I was dumbfounded. It was all so sudden and forceful. My colleagues looked incredulous. Jim was trembling with anger. I'm being sent on a long-term overseas assignment? I asked repeatedly. But John just laughed. I'll be glad to see you gone. You're not even close to being good enough for Emily. He really wanted to separate me from Emily that badly. I was in shock. But John's orders were absolute. I had no choice but to comply. Back at my desk, I started packing my things. Seeing this, Emily rushed over to me. This is too cruel. I'll talk to John for you. She tried to go to John, but I stopped her. I couldn't let Emily get dragged into this. And so, I departed for overseas. The overseas assignment allowed me to use my experience and improve my skills, making it a valuable opportunity. What was supposed to be a 3-year stint turned into 4 years before I knew it. As I was working on site as usual, I received a phone call. It was from the main office in the US. I was instructed to return to the head office next week. I was finally going back to the US. I felt a surge of excitement at the thought of returning home. The day arrived, and after a long journey, I landed in the US. I headed straight to the office to greet everyone. The main office hasn't changed at all since I last visited. The same scenery greeted me as when I left for my long overseas assignment, which somehow felt reassuring. As I walked down the familiar hallway, I heard a voice call out from behind. I turned around to see Emily standing there. "Welcome back, David." I felt a bit nervous seeing Emily again after so long. "Jim has been eagerly waiting for your return too." Knowing that everyone had been waiting for me made me happy. As I was having a pleasant conversation with Emily, a sudden shout came from behind me. "Don't you dare mess with my girl just after coming back." I couldn't believe my ears. What on earth was he talking about? Emily also looked confused, staring at John. "What are you saying? Emily isn't your girlfriend. You shouldn't talk like that in front of a female colleague." When I said that, John glared at me. Then he said something unbelievable. "Emily and I are going to start dating." "Who do you think you are to talk to a department head like that?" John put his arm around Emily's shoulder. Emily pushed him away, saying, "John, stop it. I don't like you at all." "What? Emily, you do like me, right?" Despite Emily's clear rejection, John wouldn't accept it. Just then, a loud laugh came from behind me. It was Jim. "John, you should stop harassing Emily." "Shut up. This has nothing to do with you. Why are you interfering?" John's loud voice attracted a crowd in the hallway. Everyone watched in shock as John made a scene. Then suddenly, the hallway fell silent. Someone pushed through the crowd and addressed John. "What's all this commotion, John?" The president, Mr. Johnson, looked at John curiously. Then, noticing me, he smiled. "David, you're back. Emily missed you so much. Finally, after 2 years of marriage, you can live together properly." "Dad, please stop saying that in front of everyone." Emily blushed, her face turning bright red. Sorry. I just got excited seeing how happy you are." "Well, see you later," Mr. Johnson said, heading into the conference room. John looked bewildered. "What? Married for 2 years? Emily is the president's daughter?" John was completely confused. I decided to tell him the truth. "I thought you knew, John. Emily is Mr. Johnson's daughter and my wife." "What?" John looked stunned. Jim laughed again. "That's why I told you to stop bothering Emily," Jim said. John stared at me in disbelief, so I showed him the matching wedding ring on my left hand. Finally understanding the situation, John left the scene, looking dejected. The gathered crowd started clapping, congratulating us. The truth was, Emily and I had gotten married 2 years ago during my time overseas. When the rumors about us dating started, we were already a couple. Emily always listened to me and supported me through tough times. I wouldn't have made it through without her. I proposed to Emily while I was still overseas because I wanted to be with her even more. I discovered Emily was the president's daughter when I came back to the US briefly and met her parents. I was shocked when Mr. Johnson came out of the house. He kindly welcomed me and quickly approved our marriage, believing I could make Emily happy. Emily didn't want people to know she was the president's daughter, so we only told our closest friend, Jim, about our marriage. That's why John didn't know. While I was on the overseas assignment, Emily and I kept in close contact, eagerly looking forward to the day we could live together. Finally, the day had come, and I was overjoyed at the thought. As I entered the sales department office, chatting with Emily and Jim to catch up on lost time, I saw John, who looked incredibly angry. He couldn't accept that Emily was now with me. His face was contorted with rage, red as a beet. Seeing me enter the office, he immediately shouted at me. "Someone like you, a mere high school graduate, doesn't belong in this sales department. Why did you come back? You should have stayed overseas forever." Here we go again. I had anticipated this reaction when I told him about marrying Emily. But hearing John's harsh words after so long was tough. If I argued back, it would only escalate things. I bit my lip and endured it. However, John, angered by my silence, hurled even more hurtful words at me. "Oh, there's another long-term overseas assignment opening up. David, why don't you take it?" "Yeah, let's do that." What was he saying? I had just returned. If he didn't want to work with me, he should take the overseas assignment himself. I could only sigh. Then, a loud voice came from behind me. "That won't be happening. Mr. Johnson. Why are you here?" The person who shouted behind me was Mr. Johnson. It seemed Mr. Johnson had been listening to John all the time. John starts to get upset. "This is my company. I can be wherever I want. Do you always belittle David like this?" Mr. Johnson was clearly angry. "No, it was just a joke. This is the first time I said something like that. Right, David?" John tried to get me to back him up. Did he really think I would support him? I would never do that. I told Mr. Johnson the truth. John always calls me and Jim useless high school graduates. I've gotten used to it by now. John's face fell, as if the world was ending. Jim nodded in agreement. Just earlier, Emily also told me about John's true nature. I couldn't believe it, so I decided to check on the sales department. And this is what I found. "John, you don't understand anything. David is about to become someone you should never treat this way." "What do you mean?" John and everyone else listened intently to Mr. Johnson's every word. Even I was anxious to hear what he would say. Mr. Johnson finally spoke. "David, you are just like your father, ambitious and dedicated to this company. I believe you can handle this company when I step down. I want to retire soon." Everyone watched in stunned silence. John was too shocked to speak. "Will you become the president of this company?" Mr. Johnson looked at me with a serious gaze. "Me, the president?" Even though I married Mr. Johnson's daughter, making me president seemed far-fetched. Then, the sales department door opened again, and the vice president, Mr. Anderson, entered. David will surely lead this company to great heights. He had a stellar reputation during his overseas assignment. He'll do just fine. My father confidently recommended me. I felt a surge of warmth at his unexpected praise. "Thank you, Dad." "Wait, Dad? The vice president is your father?" John stammered, clearly shaken. There was another secret I had kept from everyone. The vice president of this company was indeed my father. He and Mr. Johnson had founded this company from the ground up. Mr. Johnson and my father worked tirelessly to grow this company from nothing. I kept this a secret because I didn't want to be seen as benefiting from nepotism. Having decided to join the company straight out of high school, I wanted to carve out my own future on my own merits. My father shared this sentiment and hadn't even disclosed our relationship to Mr. Johnson. When I found out, I was so shocked I nearly fell over. When I introduced Emily to my parents before our wedding, my father was overjoyed and moved to tears. He believed that I could make Emily happy. Ignoring John, I shook hands firmly with Mr. Johnson. "I will work hard to uplift this company and make Emily happy." As I said this, the sales department erupted in warm applause. "I'm relieved to hear that. Now I can retire peacefully," Mr. Johnson said. On the other hand, John looked pale and stunned. David as the president of this company? This can't be happening. I must be dreaming. John muttered, collapsing to his knees. Mr. Johnson then dealt John a further blow. You have been harsh on David and Jim. There are many employees who joined this company straight out of high school. With you as their superior, more employees will suffer. You are demoted as of today. John looked at Mr. Johnson with desperate eyes. Demoted? But I've worked so hard. Please, give me another chance. I'll try to be a better manager. Jim, who had been quietly listening, raised his voice. Someone who looked down on us, as incompetent high school graduates, can't suddenly become a good manager. Start over from scratch. Mr. Johnson nodded in agreement. Unfortunately, I agree. People don't change that quickly. Reflect on your past actions. John hung his head and began to cry. None of our colleagues went over to comfort him. As Mr. Johnson decreed, John was demoted and transferred. He kept begging Mr. Johnson to reconsider, but to no avail. Eventually, John was sent to a branch office in a remote location, where he continued to cause problems by looking down on high school graduates. Mr. Johnson then ordered John to be transferred to a subsidiary company. But John's pride was too great, and he chose to resign. Now, no one knows where John is or what he's doing. It's a result of his own actions, for never valuing his subordinates. As for me, I am now happily living in the US with Emily. After being apart for so long, I am determined to make up for lost time and build a happy family. I also aspire to become a respected president that all employees want to follow. Excuse me, are you? The emaciated woman was brought to the hospital where I work. When I heard her story, nostalgic memories flooded back. Could this person be? No, but... As the woman continued speaking, I nervously addressed her. My name is Ryan. In my 30s, I'm currently a doctor, seeing patients every day. Although the daily efforts to help the community can be tough, my life is very fulfilling. Now recognized as a renowned doctor, I've had to overcome many hardships to get here. When I was 7, my father died in a disaster. My mother, suddenly losing the family's breadwinner, worked herself to death, following my father. With no relatives to turn to, I ended up in an orphanage. There were many children like me without families or abandoned by their parents. At first, the drastic change from my previous life made me withdrawn from people. Why did my father and mother leave me behind? My mind was filled with such pessimistic thoughts, and I would always sit alone in the corner of the room, feeling down. What changed me were the kind staff and other children. Ryan, you don't have a mom and dad, right? A younger girl approached and asked. She probably had her own reasons for being in the orphanage. Yeah, that's right. I see, me too. I don't have any family left. When I answered, the girl looked sad. Seeing her so alone, I found myself speaking up without thinking. Then from now on, I'll be your big brother. Really? I'm so happy. Seeing her face light up, I felt like I truly gained a sister. Being an only child, I had always longed for siblings. After that, taking care of the other children as if they were my siblings, I found myself feeling more positive. But those children were gradually adopted. A few months later, the girl who talked to me also left with a foster family, smiling. She'll probably live in a warm family from now on. I supported their happy futures while feeling lonely myself. I also wanted to be needed by a family. But no one ever adopted me. Several years later, I was in high school, focusing on part-time jobs and studying instead of joining clubs. In my situation, leisurely joining a club wasn't an option. Ideally, I wanted to work after middle school to avoid burdening the orphanage. But the staff encouraged me to at least finish high school, telling me about scholarships available for high school students. Attending high school changed my life significantly. Being in a different environment from my hometown friends helped me grow as a person. My classmates were very different from those in middle school, for better or worse. Since the high school was a college prep school, part-time jobs were not allowed. However, the teachers understood my situation and made an exception for me. I found a high-paying but tough job, and not working wasn't an option. as I worked and studied until I was exhausted every day. The staff often checked on me. "Ryan, are you okay? Don't overwork yourself." "Yes. Thank you for your concern." Each time, I felt both grateful and apologetic. The staff at the orphanage had been kind to me from the moment I arrived, and I was truly grateful for that. That's why I worked hard in high school and at my part-time jobs to repay the kindness I had received. After finishing high school, I went on to college. After graduating from college, I aimed to go to medical school to pursue a career in healthcare. It was my high school mentor who guided me on this path. At first, I was hesitant because I thought I couldn't afford medical school, but Mr. Smith persuaded me passionately. He pointed out that despite working tough jobs, my grades were excellent, and he encouraged me to pursue my talents. The truth is, my father had died from injuries sustained in the disaster. Because of that, I grew up wondering if I could have saved my father's life if I had been a doctor. I dreamed of becoming a doctor to help people suffering from accidents and disasters, to prevent more children from experiencing the sorrow I did. However, the cost of college alone was daunting, and the thought of medical school tuition was overwhelming. So I had given up on the idea of pursuing medicine from the start. But Mr. Smith researched and found local universities with scholarship programs and medical schools that recently announced full tuition waivers. These programs offered various special benefits for academically talented and financially struggling students, such as tuition waivers and scholarships. Encouraged by the idea that I might qualify, I felt my heart swell with hope. "Thank you. I'll do my best." Thus, I resolved to become a doctor and, after intense studying, I was accepted. I was also selected as a special scholarship student, starting my journey toward my dream of becoming a doctor. However, even with tuition covered, I still needed to earn money for living expenses. So, I started working part-time as soon as I enrolled, trying to save as much as possible. I found a high-paying but tough job and worked tirelessly, sacrificing my free time. Balancing work and studies was extremely challenging, but maintaining good grades and proper conduct was essential to keep my scholarship. Therefore, I made sure to keep up my studies and never let my grades slip. As a result, I managed to save some money, graduated top of my class, and entered medical school, only to find myself immediately immersed in clinical training. Experiencing team-based medical care with patients, their families, and fellow doctors made the reality of becoming a doctor sink in. Clinical training was tough, but the thought of becoming a doctor filled me with joy, and I enjoyed encouraging each other with my classmates. After graduating from medical school and obtaining my medical license, I began my 2-year residency. This was essentially a training period for doctors. And the daily grind often made me question the joy and fulfillment I once felt during clinical training. There was so much to learn, and the demanding environment, often influenced by the mood of senior doctors, was incredibly stressful. The environment was so challenging that I sometimes thought about quitting. In such moments, I remembered the encouraging words from the orphanage staff. Even as a resident, I would visit the orphanage when I could. The staff always greeted me warmly, saying, "How are things going? Don't overdo it, keep up the good work." Their support was a real source of strength for me. Being a resident is tough. "Are you okay? You're not overdoing it?" "Yes, it's tough, but I'm managing." "You don't look well, are you eating properly? You've always been so serious and overworked yourself since you were little." No matter how much I reassured them, they seemed to understand my condition and personality perfectly. I smiled to mask my feelings, appreciating their long-standing support. But as time went on, I became truly exhausted. One day, lying on a bench by the hospital's back entrance, a stranger approached me. This area was off limits to outsiders, but as I watched, the person spoke to me. "Hello." She was a beautiful woman with a kind smile, and I felt a little flustered. "Nice to meet you, I'm Emily. I'm here for work." "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too. I'm Ryan." When I introduced myself, Emily extended her hand for a handshake. I reached out, and she smiled warmly. Emily had a friendly personality, and despite being strangers, she chatted with me comfortably. Encouraged by her, I found myself responding more and more. I learned from our conversations that Emily was about 10 years older than me. I was surprised because she looked so young and beautiful. We ended up talking a lot about work, favorite music, and other topics. I come here often, so let's chat again. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you again too. That's nice of you to say. See you then. Emily waved and walked away. I knew she didn't see me as a man since I was 10 years younger, but I still wanted to see and talk with her. The turning point in my life came after meeting Emily a few times. One day, I was so busy that I forgot to eat lunch, and my stomach growled loudly in front of Emily. "Ryan, are you eating properly?" "I didn't have time today. The hospital cafeteria is closed, and I can't afford to buy a lunchbox from the convenience store." "Really?" I honestly admitted that I was struggling financially. People often think doctors earn high salaries, but as a resident, I earned less than most office workers my age. I was so busy that I couldn't cook. And ready-made food was expensive, so I sometimes skipped meals. After hearing my story, Emily smiled warmly and made an unexpected offer. "Then I'll bring you lunch. It would make things easier for you, right?" "Really? Is that okay with you?" I was surprised, and Emily's face lit up. "If we meet here every day, you can have lunch. But I'd feel bad about causing you trouble." "It's fine. I make lunch every day anyways, so it's no extra trouble to make two instead of one." Encouraged by Emily's smile, I agreed to have her make lunch for me every day. At first, I thought she was joking, but the next day, she really brought me a lunchbox. "Here you go. Thank you so much. I'll wash the lunchbox and return it. You're such a good kid. Just bring it back tomorrow, I know you're busy." Emily laughed brightly and handed me the lunchbox. The work as a resident was still tough, but eating Emily's lunchbox gave me the strength to keep going. Looking back, her lunchbox was probably the first homemade meal I had since my childhood. For several months, Emily brought me lunch every day. Her lunchbox were always delicious, well-balanced, and thoughtfully prepared. If someone asked if I liked Emily, I couldn't deny it. However, I knew she didn't see me as a man, so I didn't ask for more. But our relationship abruptly ended. One day, Emily called me out of the blue. "I'm sorry, but I can't bring you lunch anymore starting tomorrow." I was surprised and worried about what happened to her, but I didn't think it was my place to pry. I told Emily, "Thank you for everything. Let me repay you someday," before hanging up the phone, but after that, she never appeared at the hospital again. When I asked the hospital staff, they only said the contractor had changed. I tried calling Emily, but I never got through. I didn't want to bother her by calling repeatedly, so I eventually stopped trying. Sometimes, I would look at the lunchbox I still had and wonder if she was doing okay. Years later, I was working at a community hospital dedicated to supporting local healthcare. I had become recognized as a specialist and was known as a leading doctor in community healthcare. Now, I no longer struggled financially and was considered one of the top doctors at the hospital. I made sure to provide thorough care for each patient and worked to improve the hospital's system to accept all patients. I created a hospital capable of handling emergencies, with the hope that no more children would lose their parents to injury or illness like I did. With the support of the hospital director, Dr. Davis, and my colleagues, I had a fulfilling job every day. Surrounded by a reliable staff that I could trust. Although I remained single, I had no regrets. Years had passed since Emily's sudden disappearance, and yet I still had no idea where she was. I never forgot about her, not for a single day. Emily's smile and lunchbox had kept me going during my toughest times. I tried searching for her many times, but each attempt ended in disappointment. No matter how grateful I was, to Emily, I was just an acquaintance. Even consulting the police led nowhere, as I had no legal standing. In the end, 25 years passed without a trace of Emily, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. One day, while working at the hospital, I was contemplating dinner as I saw my last few patients for the day. There were fewer patients than usual, and the staff on day shift were already cleaning up. What should I eat tonight? Maybe I should visit the nearby pub for the first time in a while. As I daydreamed about the menu, I got a call about a patient being brought in by ambulance. "I'll be right there." In the treatment room, I found a woman who had fallen down some stairs at the train station. She was lying there, looking frail and skinny. Upon examination, I discovered that she had broken her left leg. Even after treating her injuries, she remained unconscious. Considering her poor physical condition, it seemed like she had been exhausted long before this incident. I suggested moving her to a quieter room to aid her recovery. She had no identification or contact information, so we admitted her and waited for her to regain consciousness. The next day, I examined her once she woke up. "Are you okay? Can you tell me your name?" She slowly turned to look at me, her eyes filled with sadness. "Where do you live? Do you have any family or contacts?" She silently shook her head in response to my questions. Unsure of what to ask next, I decided to try another approach. "Can you tell me what happened? I'd like to help if I can." After a few attempts, she began to speak gradually. It turned out she had been helping with her father's business, but when finances became strained and she confronted him, he abandoned her and disappeared. The business collapsed, and she found a new job, but the pay was low and her savings dwindled quickly. Years ago, her parents had divorced after her father had an affair, and she had no one to rely on. Now, she lives in a shabby apartment, struggling to make ends meet, and had fallen while trying to go grocery shopping due to exhaustion. "That's quite a situation," I said, unable to find better words. But then she shared something surprising. "Years ago, I knew a young medical student who couldn't afford to eat, so I made lunchbox for him." What? Hearing her words brought back nostalgic memories. Could this really be? No, but... While I was in shock, she continued talking. "He always accepted them so happily. Just seeing his face light up made me happy. But now, I can't even feed myself." She made lunch for a medical student who couldn't afford to eat? I used to be a young man who could barely able to afford food, and a woman I knew used to bring me a lunchbox. Her daily act of kindness had always filled me with joy. There couldn't be many people in this world who would make lunchbox for someone who wasn't family. Forgetting my professional stance, I nervously asked, "Are you Emily Summers?" "What?" The woman blinked in surprise and stared at me. "My name is Ryan. Back when I was a resident, struggling with low pay and no time to rest, I met you, Emily, and you brought me lunchbox." "No way, it can't be. I was always so happy and grateful, but then you suddenly disappeared." I watched her reaction closely. Tears began to fall from her large eyes as she said, "I am Emily Summers." "It really is you, Emily." "Ryan. You've become a wonderful doctor. Thanks to you, Emily. I am truly grateful. Thank you so much." Emily smiled gently, her face as beautiful as ever. But behind that lovely smile, I couldn't forget the tragic circumstances she had just shared. I wondered what I should do next. I couldn't just discharge Emily and let her go. I couldn't abandon the woman who had helped me during my toughest times. What should I do? What could I do for Emily? After considering various possibilities, I came to a conclusion. It might upset her, but I thought it was the best option given the circumstances. "Emily, if you don't mind, would you stay at my place after you're discharged?" "What?" Emily's eyes widened in surprise. Of course, she would be shocked. The man she once gave lunchbox to. And now he was asking her to live with him. "I'm a doctor now and financially stable. If you don't want to, I won't force you, but I'm worried about you. I think things might get worse if you continue as you are." I spoke honestly about my concerns. Emily looked down, contemplating, and after a while, she murmured, "Would it be okay for someone like me to live with you? I want you to live with me. You helped me back then, and now it's my turn to help you. Then, I'll take you up on your offer." "Great." Seeing Emily's shy smile, I felt a deep sense of relief. I wanted to make up for all the hardship she had endured. As soon as she was discharged, I brought her to my home. Years have passed since that surprising reunion. Emily still lives with me, and she looks happy. Her once skinny body is now healthy and her expressions are much brighter. Emily often thanks me, and it's become a habit for me to thank her in return. When we got used to living together, I asked her a question that had been on my mind. "By the way, why did you bring me lunchbox?" It must have been difficult to do that every day. Emily then shared something surprising. "You reminded me of my brother. It turned out that Emily had a much younger brother, and they were separated when their parents divorced. He went with their mother. They had been close siblings, and she often made meals for her hungry brother. Seeing me, a boy of similar age struggling and hungry, she couldn't just stand by. So she decided to bring me lunchboxes, something she could do to help. I see. He was a wonderful brother. Knowing a boy your age was hungry, I just couldn't ignore it. Hearing Emily's response, I thought once again how kind she was. Glad I asked. I had one more question. Why did you suddenly stop coming to the hospital? At that time, my father disappeared. I had to close down his business and contact all the clients, so I was overwhelmed. I see. Even in such a tough situation, you still contacted me. Thank you so much. I thanked Emily again. Memories flooded back, and tears welled up in my eyes. Emily gently hugged me. Emily has continued to live with me since then. We are neither lovers nor spouses, but living with Emily makes me genuinely happy. Though unspoken, I hope she feels the same way. I hope we can stay together forever. With that thought, I continue my work at the hospital today.